So you want to know what really gets the ball rolling when it comes to economic growth.
It's a question that's been keeping economists up at night for ages.
And you know what? The answer might just throw you for a bit of a loop.
Yeah, it's not always what you'd expect.
You sent us a whole stack of research to dig into, and it's fascinating stuff.
It really is.
Especially these excerpts from Creating a Learning Society.
By Nobel laureate economist, no less, Joseph Stiglitz.
Exactly.
Alongside some other big names, too. Bruce C. Greenwald.
Okay.
Philippe Aghion, Kenneth J. Arrow.
Right.
Robert M. Salo, and Michael Wood Ford. They all make a really strong case for learning being the real secret sauce.
Oh, wow. Okay, so like the secret to long-term economic success.
You got it.
Interesting, because usually you hear about investing in capital, education, that sort of thing.
For sure. Those are key ingredients.
Yeah.
But Robert Salo's work kind of flips the script.
Okay, how so?
He's saying productivity growth that's fueled by learning and innovation. That's the real engine driving things.
So it's not just about putting in the hours or having a ton of resources.
Nope.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
You got it. And get this, it's not just some theory cooked up in an ivory tower.
Yeah.
Stiglitz lays out this really compelling example. UK engineering industry.
Okay.
Back in the 80s. It shows how this seemingly small change, totally by accident, unleashed this wellspring of hidden productivity.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Tell me more.
All right, so picture this. A labor agreement forces everyone to work less.
Okay.
Down from 5 days a week to 4.
Shorter work week. Gotcha.
Wages get adjusted, to keep things fair.
Makes sense.
But here's the thing. Nobody saw this coming.
Right.
This change forced companies to completely rethink how they did things.
Because of the new schedule.
Exactly. And the result, way more output, even with fewer hours on the clock.
Wait, so they stumbled into like a productivity goldmine.
Pretty much, just because they had to learn and adapt.
Wow.
And it highlights this huge point. Even in really well-run economies, there's this massive gap between what we could be doing and what's actually happening.
Because
we're stuck in our ways. Outdated processes, lagging learning, the whole shebang.
So even without some crazy new invention, just figuring out better ways to do what we already do
can unlock huge economic gains.
It really makes you question this idea of advanced economies running at peak efficiency.
Right. It's like there's this untapped potential just waiting for us to unlock it.
And the key is creating a culture of continuous learning. Which brings up another question.
Let's hear it.
Don't free markets with all their competition, don't they naturally encourage this kind of learning? I mean, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, that's the classic argument.
It's where things get a bit complicated. While markets are great for some kinds of learning, they don't always go for the kind that leads to widespread, long-lasting prosperity.
You're telling me markets don't always hit the mark. Now I got to hear more about this.
It's like this learning, especially the kind that leads to those aha moments, often has these things called positive externalities. Basically, it's knowledge spilling over, benefiting others, even if they didn't do the legwork. Okay, so like if I crack the code on some revolutionary new way to manufacture something, that knowledge could help my competitors too, even if they didn't invest in the research.
Exactly. And because those who do invest in learning, they don't always reap the full rewards of their discoveries.
Makes sense.
They often end up underinvesting. Markets on their own, they tend to go for the quick win.
Right.
Immediate profits.
Instead of those long-term, potentially bigger payoffs from knowledge and innovation. Kind of like choosing a quick takeout meal over a home-cooked feast, right?
I like that analogy.
Takeout's fast and easy, but putting in the time for a well-crafted meal.
Way more rewarding in the long run.
Exactly.
And this market myopia, it pops up everywhere. Take monopolies, for instance.
Okay.
Usually they get painted as the villains, right?
Yeah, stifling innovation, hoarding all the knowledge for themselves.
The big bad monopolists, we all know the story.
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting. Stiglitz, along with his co-author Dasgupta, they found something kind of surprising.
Oh.
Their research shows that sometimes a monopoly can actually lead to more research and development.
Now, that's a plot twist I wasn't expecting. How does that work?
Well, it all comes down to those big monopoly profits.
Okay.
Sometimes those profits, they provide the resources and, more importantly, the incentive for a company to really go all in on R&D.
Because they have more skin in the game, so to speak.
Exactly. They've got a lot to lose, so staying ahead of the curve through innovation, that's how they stay on top.
So they leverage their market dominance not to hold back progress, but to drive it forward.
In certain cases, yeah. But, and this is a big but,
There's always a but.
even if monopolies do juice innovation, the benefits, they don't always reach everyone equally. And of course, there are downsides. Less competition, higher prices for consumers.
Yep.
It's a trade-off, that's for sure.
Makes me think about all the debates around those super efficient production methods. You know, the ones that are great for the bottom line, but maybe not so much for the environment or society.
Right. Progress at what cost?
Exactly.
And that leads us to another fascinating quirk of markets and learning, the whole patent race phenomenon.
Okay, patents. On the surface, they sound like a good thing, right? Protecting ideas, encouraging people to come up with new stuff.
Yeah, in theory.
But you're saying there's more to it.
Sometimes a company's main goal isn't actually to create something groundbreaking.
It isn't.
It's to stop anyone else from doing it first.
Really? So it becomes less about pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Right.
And more about just holding on to your turf.
Exactly. If a company can use patents strategically to throw their competitors off balance, they maintain that market advantage, it becomes less about fostering progress and more about, well, staying on top.
It's like those board games where the goal is to bankrupt your opponents, not necessarily to build the most impressive thing.
A perfect analogy. And then there's creative destruction to factor in.
Oh, boy.
Innovation, it shakes things up right.
That's one way to put it.
But all that churn, all that economic uncertainty, it can actually make it harder to really learn and adapt for the long haul.
So those periods of massive change, like recessions,
Yeah.
they actually make it tougher to learn and grow in the long run.
You got it. When businesses are just trying to survive, always looking over their shoulder for the next downturn, they're less likely to invest in research or develop new skills.
Makes sense. It's all about weathering the storm, not exploring new horizons.
Exactly. Like trying to study for a big exam during an earthquake. Not exactly the best environment for deep focus.
Not at all. So basically what you're saying is there's this fundamental disconnect.
Right.
Between how markets often operate and the conditions that are necessary for real, sustained learning and progress.
100%. It's like markets are playing checkers, focused on those immediate gains, while learning, that's more like chess. You got to think long-term, strategically.
Love the analogy. And this is where Stiglitz's idea of a learning society comes in, right?
Exactly.
If markets aren't always up for the task, what can we do to design systems that encourage and even, in a way, require constant learning?
Now you're asking the right questions, and that's what we'll dig into next.
This learning society idea, it's pretty mind-blowing when you really think about it, like a utopia for innovation, right? But how do we actually get there? What are the essential ingredients?
Well, get ready for this because it might ruffle some feathers. Stiglitz, he says, that the government, they've got a big part to play.
Interesting, because we always hear about the free market being the big innovator. Are you saying we need the government to step in and, orchestrate things?
In a way, yeah. But hold on, we're not talking about some heavy-handed control freak situation, all right? Not about picking winners and losers or anything like that.
Okay, good to know.
It's more about strategic investment, creating the right conditions for learning and innovation to flourish. Think of it like setting the stage for a garden to thrive.
So instead of choosing which flowers to plant, the government's job is to make sure the soil is fertile, there's enough sunlight, that kind of thing.
You got it. And one of the most important things they can do is fund basic research. You know, those fundamental discoveries that might not have an immediate use, but they form the bedrock for future breakthroughs.
The kind of research that companies might shy away from because, well, it's risky. Who knows if it'll ever turn into a profit?
Exactly. And it's bigger than just research, too. Governments can implement what we call strategic industrial policies. Again, not about playing favorites. It's about spotting those sectors with massive learning potential, those ripple effect industries.
So, instead of throwing money at one specific solar panel company, they'd be like, renewable energy, that's the future. Let's incentivize innovation across the whole sector.
Now you're getting it. It's about setting the stage for widespread progress. Everyone benefits that way. And another area where the government can really make a difference is intellectual property.
Patents and all that.
Yeah, but it's not always about making them stricter. You know, sometimes a more open approach can actually be more effective.
Really? How so?
Well, take compulsory licensing, for example.
Compulsory licensing.
Basically, it lets governments, under certain circumstances, give the green light for others to use a patented technology.
Even if the patent holder isn't thrilled about it.
Exactly. It's about making sure important knowledge isn't kept under lock and key. It can be used to solve urgent problems or spark even more innovation. Think about things like life-saving medications.
Makes sense. It's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
Rewarding innovation while also making sure knowledge can be used to benefit everyone.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. None of this will work unless we change our mindset. We need a culture that embraces being open, questioning everything, and most importantly, not being afraid to experiment.
So it's not enough to have the right systems in place. We need a culture that values learning as a lifelong pursuit.
Absolutely. If we shy away from failure, if we cling to old ways of doing things, we'll get left behind. The world's changing faster than ever. This is about cultural evolution just as much as economic policy.
So we're talking about a pretty massive undertaking here. Fostering the right conditions for learning, making sure knowledge is accessible, and creating a culture that celebrates curiosity and rewards those aha moments.
You nailed it. It's not about government versus free markets. It's about understanding that both have a role to play in building a society where learning is the engine driving us towards a brighter future.
And that brings us to you, dear listener. If knowledge really is the ultimate treasure, how does this change your perspective? How can you cultivate that learner's mindset in your own life, embracing those light bulb moments and helping to build a future bursting with innovation and shared prosperity? Something to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive into the unexpected power of learning.